Okay, if you really believe that, then you've got to acknowledge murdering Jews is not absolutely wrong. It's just an American fetish.
I wouldn't call it a fetish. It's a very wise thing. A lot of these things you chalk up as moral absolutes are really good ideas.
According to who?
Good idea not to steal.
Which society?
A debate about right and wrong quickly sharpens into a deeper clash over conscience, culture, and whether morality exists beyond human agreement. If society can redefine good and evil, can anything still be absolutely wrong? And when people say you should not do something, are they defending social order or appealing to a standard outside themselves? What starts as a disagreement about justice soon becomes a larger question about the source of moral truth and whether it points beyond humanity at all. Let's dive in.
But I don't have the right, motivated by selfishness, hatred, or revenge, to kill you. That's murder. But I can promise you, sir, if you pull out a knife and start stabbing people around you, and I go after you, tackle you real hard, and break your neck and kill you, that ain't murder, sir. That's preventing the slaughter of innocent people who you're just randomly pushing a knife into.
Other people. How do you know these people before me are innocent? For all you know, she killed someone last night. You just don't know about it. And I'm killing her because of that. Because I know she has plans to kill other people.
Fine, then you better explain that real fast to me as I'm running towards you.
You might laugh, but if there are moral absolutes, how could anyone ever break them?
Because we have a free will, guys. I know I've broken moral absolutes. Why? Because I have a free will. Just because there's a moral absolute doesn't mean I gotta obey it.
But you obviously didn't consider it a moral absolute at the time.
I absolutely did. I absolutely know that stealing is absolutely wrong, and I have stolen. I absolutely know that cheating is wrong, and I have cheated.
Well,
I have a problem with sin. That's why I need Jesus Christ.
Well, I think a distinction needs to be made between those people who know it's wrong and do it anyway, and those people that don't see that it's wrong. I don't believe Hitler thought it was wrong to gas the Jews. He didn't think he was doing wrong in doing that.
Good. And guess what? If the Nazis would have won World War II, and if we'd all be speaking German right now, I'm still convinced that gassing Jews is wrong.
But no one.
I don't care who won the war. That is not the basis of a moral. I'm convinced there is a moral absolute of justice that is totally violated by the Jews being gassed. I don't care what society says. I don't care who won World War II. Why am I convinced of that? Because I have a conscience that ties me into a moral absolute.
The Druids had a conscience that cutting down trees was the most moral evil we could do. We've wiped them out, so now it's no longer a moral absolute.
No. Just because the Nazis wipe out all people who think that slaying Jews is wrong does not mean that I am convinced that there's not a moral absolute of justice that is totally violated by the Holocaust.
Logging is a complete violation of a moral absolute to the Druids. We just got rid of them. That's why we don't believe that. If the Druids
now you're
the world, we believe that.
You're bringing up the issue of disagreeing what the moral absolutes are. Sir, we're not there yet in the argument. The argument is, are there some moral absolutes? If there are, that points to some type of moral lawgiver, some type of God. If there is no God, there are no moral absolutes. That's the argument right now. Now, the next argument then is, okay, what are those moral absolutes?
I'm not there yet. I'm arguing with you if there are moral absolutes, and I'm arguing to you that there aren't, and I'm citing reasons why there are not.
Okay, fine. I don't think that it's a reasonable argument to say, because someone wipes out innocent people, there are no moral absolutes. That doesn't mean anything.
Because you, in your mind, have a judge that is saying killing people is wrong. Not everyone has that same judge.
My experience of life is, and obviously one of the reasons I'm using this argument is because I'm convinced that the vast majority of you know exactly what I'm talking about. My experience in life is that when I am confronted by certain types of behavior, I say, that should not be done. When I say, should not, I am appealing to a standard outside of us, outside of our society, that I am convinced my conscience ties me into, a real value of justice.
Yes,
the only way there can be a real value of justice is if there is some type of God to create and define that value.
No, you are asserting now that you're a member of American culture. I'm not going to deny you are. However, members of Chinese culture do not feel particularly wrong with infanticide. It is just not a part of their culture to be against it. You are not a real person until you're of a certain age. It is just a different culture. As part of your culture, I will
If
not...
what you say is correct, then morality is relative, depending upon which culture you live in. I'm saying, I don't care what culture you live in. Murdering Jews in the Holocaust is wrong. And I think when you hear me say that, something within you says, yeah, man, that's right.
Of course, I was grown up in American culture.
Okay, if you really believe that, then you've got to acknowledge murdering Jews is not absolutely wrong. It's just an American fetish.
I wouldn't call it a fetish. It's a very wise thing. A lot of these things you chalk up as moral absolutes are really good ideas.
According
it's
to who?
Good idea not to steal.
Which society? Sorry.
Just
Now, our
do the
society
math.
is not
if
a
we all
conscience.
stole from each other, we wouldn't function. If we all killed each other rampantly, we'd all be dead a long time ago.
Fine. If there is no God, though, and if it's true that society makes up morality, morality is still relative depending upon which society you live in.
That's my point.
Okay. I think both you and I respect people who follow their conscience instead of following their society.
Our conscience is defined by our society. We were
Really?
raised in a very certain way.
How did American society define Dr. Martin Luther King's conscience?
He was influenced and grew up in it. I can't talk extensively about Martin Luther King. I don't know him very well. However, because of certain things he saw, he was able to react against hypocrites and analyze and draw certain conclusions. We grew up in a society, and I don't know much about Martin Luther King. I can't comment on him. I will use something then that possibly we can both understand. In our culture, we have certain views on what is morally acceptable and is morally not acceptable about sex. Some of us will go and believe we can do whatever we want, similar to the idealism that was held in the 60s. To those people, the hippies, there was nothing wrong with free sex. To a large group of other people of a different morale set, it was inherently wrong to go and sleep with someone outside of marriage. And both those people believed very strongly in their own moral viewpoint, and they never felt some moral compunction against doing what they did. If you want to argue that they did, then pull it outside their culture to say Greek society before Christianity came.
I think you've given a great illustration of free will. Because we have free will, we can choose to define right and wrong any way we want to. But I still think that does not change the fact that all of us have a conscience that ties us into values that we are convinced are real values, like
How do you
justice.
get convinced of those? How do you get convinced that the definition of tree describes that thing? It's what you were taught.
No, sir. I was taught a lot of things that I do not believe. I have a free will, I have my own rational mind, and I can promise you if I followed my culture, I would not be a follower of Jesus Christ. I grew up in a suburb of New York City, and in the suburb of New York City that I grew up in, you did not take following Christ too seriously. I chose to violate my culture and follow Christ instead of my culture.
That was still an allowable aspect of your culture. It is something someone thought of.
Yes, obviously someone thought of it.
It was an avenue that our culture allowed you. Just because our culture defines certain things for us, it doesn't mean that that's what it says for us to do. That was a little vague, allow me to rephrase. In our culture will tell us to do certain things. As a result of telling us to do certain things, we can choose to do the exact opposite, as you have, because of what we are stimulated with by our culture. If we were stimulated by different things, we could go along with that or react completely against it in a different way.
Sir, you can stand there and debate with me till you're blue in the face. I'm appealing to all of your experience. You know very well that you use the words should not, ought not. When you use those words, you are appealing to a standard outside of the individual you're talking to. You're saying, come on, buddy, wake up and smell the coffee. You should not have stolen my backpack. You ought not to have stolen my money. You are appealing to the person's conscience. If there is no God, the value of honesty and justice that you're appealing to is totally arbitrary, totally relative. I don't think you live your life that way. I think you live your life as if the value of justice and honesty was very real. The only way it can be real is if there is some mind prior to the human mind that creates and defines that value. If there's no mind prior to the human mind, if there is no God, then it's obvious society or individuals that create right and wrong. Which means, if you steal my backpack and I believe that morality is relative, I don't say to you, you should not have stolen my backpack. I say,
Sure
it's
you
my
do.
opinion that stealing backpacks isn't cool.
No, you do say you shouldn't have stolen my backpack because now we're not going to be able to trust each other and be friends and engage in a proper societal relationship. Just like I could say to anyone else, you shouldn't have killed him because now no one's going to trust you because they think you're going to kill everyone else. Or better yet, you shouldn't have killed him, you're going to jail. I can say these shoulds. However, I can also go around to say, I'll use China again. They believe in freely borrowing each other's stuff. It's part of collectivism. I can say to one of my American friends, you shouldn't have gone through and borrowed my books without my permission. And he would have said, oh, you're right, I shouldn't have done that. That's almost like stealing. I try to tell someone from Chinese society, you shouldn't have borrowed my stuff without telling me. They would say, why not? You can take mine, I can take yours. It's the way it works.
Obviously, there are different cultures. Obviously, there are different people who define right and wrong differently. Obviously, we have free will. I don't know how this person's going to exercise his free will or her free will in the next few minutes, but obviously we all have free will. So different cultures can define right and wrong as they choose. That does not change the fact that there are a few moral absolutes, and you and I, by exercising our consciences in responsible ways, can understand those real values. I am convinced that the slaughter of Jews in Dachau and Auschwitz is absolutely wrong.